Hey everybody, welcome back to Arcade Cafe. Today, we're doing a Star Fox series tier list. As of the recording of this video, the new Star Fox game for Switch 2 hasn't come out yet, but I'm incredibly excited to play it. But even before this game was announced, in fact, as soon as the leaks from Nate the Hate came out about a new Star Fox game, I was immediately going back and playing a bunch of Star Fox games, including ones I've never played, like Adventures, Assault, Command, Zero, and Guard, the original 1 and 2 for the SNES. Yeah, so pretty much I had only played Star Fox 64. But that's okay because 90% of the series is Star Fox 64, including the new game. Well, let's go ahead and start with Star Fox for the SNES, the original, the one that started it all. This thing was pretty revolutionary for its time because it was coming to what? I believe the SNES was a 16-bit device. It was trying to render 3D graphics on a 16-bit machine. And to accomplish this, it was packaged with the FX chip. So imagine if you bought a game today, but on the disc they glued like a graphics card to it. So I managed to finish the original, and you know, we gotta give it legacy points for starting off the entire series. I'm feeling somewhere between C and B. Want to go ahead and add C+, because that's where I feel like it honestly lands. The game's got a lot of charm, like the promotional materials back then were like puppets. I like the way the characters sound in the game. But frame rate wise, playing the game today is a little rough. I think the game struggles to run like 10 frames a second. Now I've seen some ROM hacks out there that allow this game to play at a solid 60 frames a second, but honestly I don't know why we're discussing frames when we're talking about an SNES game. But yeah, the first Star Fox goes in C+, it started the series, it's got its own little charms, and Andros has a big metal face. Next game is Star Fox 2. This game is pretty different from the first game. You're like having to watch over the whole solar system. You choose 2 characters to kind of move around strategically to take out enemies as they come, and the combat is just kind of all range mode, or at least what all range mode was back then, and it wasn't too great. We have these 2 extra characters that were new to the series, Miyu and Faye. They never came back. I feel bad for them. They honestly got some cool designs, but gameplay-wise, this game wasn't really my jam. I do like strategy games, but this one was kind of bare bones, and the combat does quickly get pretty repetitive. I prefer the classic R-Wing on-rails Star Fox action, so I'm kind of feeling this game is going in D. And our next game is the legendary Star Fox 64, a reimagining of the original Star Fox. This was not only my first Star Fox game, it was one of my first video games ever. When my uncle gave me a Nintendo 64, he gave me about 5 or 6 games. Ocarina of Time, GoldenEye 007, Mario Kart 64, Mario 64, and Star Fox 64, and Castlevania 64. And I played this game so many times. But upon replaying all these games in anticipation for the new Star Fox game for Switch 2, I realized as I was replaying Star Fox 64 that back when I was a kid, I must have really sucked at this game, because the most familiar things to me were the cutscenes whenever you fail a mission. You see, when you look at the Lilat system, it's spread into 3 paths: the easy path, the medium path, and the hard path. And as I was replaying it, I realized there was a lot of the medium levels I had never played, and I had played none of the hard level path. And that was honestly great, because going back, to me that was new Star Fox content. But yeah, Star Fox 64, man. It's incredibly replayable. All of its voice lines are so iconic, and still to this day, it controls perfectly. The R-Wing controls are just so smooth. It's crazy that they got this level of precision on a Nintendo 64 game. They perfected this shit 20 years ago, and it still holds up today. I guess the only downside to Star Fox 64 is that it was so good, Nintendo never really figured out how to go beyond it. They never learned how to top it, which is why in the year of our Lord 2026, we are getting a 4th iteration of Star Fox 64. But yeah, undoubtedly, I have no idea where else this would go but S tier. The next game is Star Fox Adventures. My feelings on this game are just about as rocky as its development cycle. So some quick history: Rare was working on a game with dinosaurs, with their own characters and their own story. They showed it to Miyamoto. Miyamoto thought the main character looked a lot like Fox, and said, hey, why don't you make this a Star Fox game? Which, you know, I love Miyamoto, but not all of his calls are the right call. So they took the Star Fox brand and just kind of ham-fisted it into a game that it didn't really fit in. I think collectively you get like 2 R-Wing levels at the beginning of the game And at the end of the game, in the actual game, is Fox running around with a staff, unable to use his gun for whatever reason, just fighting dinosaurs with kung fu. A lot of people compare it to Zelda, and yeah, that's about right. It gave us a cool new character, Crystal. I like her for completely normal reasons. But yeah, this game just really wasn't for me. I play Star Fox for the on-rails R-Wing sections. This has 2 of those, and they don't last very long. But this game has its own little fan following, and if you like it, there's nothing wrong with that. The game's just not really for me. It's perfectly playable, so for me, I think this lands about C. Not great, not terrible. Star Fox Adventures. This next game is actually low-key kind of a banger of a game. Star Fox Assault. So this game has like almost a half and half mix of R-Wing sections and another group of sections where you're playing as Fox on foot, using various weapons, but he can also hop into vehicles like the Landmaster and an R-Wing and fly to different parts of the level. The R-Wing sections are just as great as they've ever been. It's nice to have new on-rails levels that aren't Star Fox 64, and the R-Wings look so cool in this game. Probably the coolest they've ever looked. And the ground sections are pretty fun. They kind of play like Earth Defense Force. I've never played that game, but I can see the gameplay comparisons. And it's alright. It's just from a story perspective, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Especially the ground missions where you are outside, on foot, shooting at stuff that is in the air. Your partners are calling for help, they're in the air, but they still need your help because none of them have ever learned how to do a somersault in their life. But why are you asking for help from the guy who is on the ground? Slippy, the best that Fox can do is probably shoot a rocket launcher at the guy behind you, but most of the time, he might just have an assault rifle. There are some ground missions that are focused on infiltration, where you're going into a building or underground, and those are the best use of the ground missions because they make the most sense. An R-Wing can't fit in this building, and I feel like that's what they really should have focused on. However, there is one level, I think it's near the end of the game, you're fighting on this base. There's a gigantic galactic battle going on. There's ships flying everywhere, there's enemies on the ground, there's buildings you can go in and out of, and you have to go in the buildings and take out some generators or something, some enemies, and then to get to another part of the base, you have to run and get into your R-Wing and fly over to another part of the base. And I feel like this was the best fusion of the ground levels and the R-Wing sections. This one level was so incredibly well done, and I wish more of the game had been like this, because the level design and the ground levels in the beginning of the game don't feel very thought out. As for the story of Star Fox Assault, it's got a story. There's like these aliens that are like a hive mind, and they want to assimilate the entire galaxy. I mean, yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm literally sitting here in my booth trying to remember like story moments, and I can't really think of one besides like the time that Fox and Wolf had a conversation, and that was kind of cool because their relationship is rarely explored in the games. Anyone's relationship, honestly, is rarely explored in these games, which is why I'm really excited for the new Star Fox game because we're getting new cutscenes exploring the relationships between these characters. But Star Fox Assault, I feel like a lot of people kind of overlook it, but I do think it's one of the better Star Fox games, and for me, it lands in B tier. I want to give it A, but I feel like a lot of the ground missions in the beginning kind of hold it back from being an exceptional game. The next game is Star Fox Command. This one is a strange one. I think it's the most they've ever focused on a Star Fox story. It's got multiple different endings, like mini endings, and different branching story paths. It's got replayability in that sense, but what really held the game back for me was its repetitive all-range mode gameplay. The combat's also kind of bare bones. Setting up the combat is pretty interesting. You have like a map and you can see where the enemies are coming from, sometimes unless there's fog of war, and you have to strategically move your pilots to intercept. You know, I love that kind of stuff because I play a lot of Fire Emblem. But the way the combat is done, it kind of messes with the pacing because when your pilot and an enemy come together, it starts a battle, an all-range mode battle, where you just have to control that pilot and shoot down the enemies. On a timer, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense, they say the timer's there because the pilots don't have a lot of fuel in their R-Wings, and I'm just like, when has fuel ever been a problem in the series? Like, is the Lilat system going through some kind of economic fuel crisis? I digress. The combat's not for me. The little all-range battles take a little too long. If it was more like Fire Emblem, I think the combat could have been way cooler. When the two units come together, it zooms in, shows them flying and fighting each other in like cool animated battles. That's what I would have liked. But then again, I say this, and I have to remember this game was on the DS. The DS was not a super powerful system, as you can see from the gameplay. But now, if you're willing to trudge through the cookie-cutter basic and repetitive gameplay, there's story to be had here. It's weird and it kind of goes all over the place, but it's there. And it's probably the most story that Star Fox has ever had, you know, before the new Switch game. But to me, I think it goes in C, just below Star Fox Adventures. I think if I had to choose which game I wanted to play out of these two, I would definitely want to play Star Fox Adventures. This one's going to be kind of quick. Star Fox 64 3D. It's Star Fox 64 again in 3D for the 3DS. It looks good. There's some quality of life things with the controls like gyro aiming. It's pretty cool, but I can't say that it's the best that Star Fox 64 has ever looked because Star Fox 64 after this game will have been remade 2 more times. But still, it's Star Fox 64. Let's go in S tier. So after the release of Star Fox Command, it would be 10 years before we even got another Star Fox game. 10 years after Star Fox Command, we got Star Fox 64 3D, and we got our next game, which heavily split the fan base, didn't sell well, and threw the series into another 10-year slumber, Star Fox Zero. So as I was replaying a lot of the Star Fox series, I was making my way up to Star Fox Zero, and almost everything that I had heard from everyone I'd talked to about this game, apparently it was just bad. The number one point of contention being the controls. Having to constantly look up and down between the Wii U gamepad and the television was just not ideal for a lot of people. Keep in mind, I do not have a Wii U. I had to use other methods to play this game, and I will say by using those other methods, Star Fox Zero is a really fun game to play when you're using other methods. The way I had it set up, I was in my booth, the one I'm recording in right now. I had my TV screen on my monitor, and I had the gamepad view on my second monitor. And playing the game like this, having to look left and right between the gamepad view and the TV, it felt like I was in the cockpit of an R-Wing. It was incredibly immersive. The opening to the game is pretty fire. Like, yeah, Star Fox Zero is Star Fox 64 again, but the levels are redone. It's much more action-packed in both the cinematography of the on-rail sections and the music. The first level, you're above Corneria's atmosphere. Fox says, "Let's rock and roll." And then you dive through the planet's atmosphere, you know, you're burning on the way in. And then the music kicks in and dude, it's just hype, goosebumps.
All right, boys, let's rock and roll. Open the wings.
And I gotta say, I enjoyed this entire game. Every level is gas, dude. I don't know what anybody's talking about. Granted, I'm not playing it on a Wii U, but still, like it's more than just Star Fox 64 again. Sure, the story is Star Fox 64, but bigger and expanded. You've got new missions that weren't in the original game, and new vehicles that weren't in the original game, like the gyro wing, the walker. I especially love the walker. In this one level, when you're like in a big galactic battle and there's a bunch of space warships, and there's this one you have to take down, you have to get past its force field, but then once you get above it, there's like a little area where you can get inside of it, but the R-Wing's too big to get inside, so you turn into the walker so that you can infiltrate, get in, destroy the core, and get out before the ship explodes. Usually, scenes like this is what you would see in cutscenes, and you wouldn't even be able to play it. But no, the whole thing, you're doing that, and it's so cool. I also like the gyro wing missions, where you have the little robot buddy, and then I have to look over to my other screen to see my little robot's point of view while he goes and hacks stuff. But I think the best thing that Star Fox Zero did was that it really fixed the all-range mode levels. In all the other Star Fox games, some of my least favorite levels are the all-range mode levels. Enemies are constantly flying out of your point of view, and I feel like you spend 90% of the time just spinning around trying to get the enemy in your view. But the thing that I love about Star Fox Zero is that you can lock on to an enemy and stay locked onto them no matter where you are, and you can always see where they are. Like, you still have to turn to face them, but it does this cool cinematic camera that makes everything look so awesome as you're trying to shoot the enemy. But yeah, man, Star Fox Zero, in my opinion, is a great game. It's one of the best Star Fox games. I don't care what anyone says. I think it's probably the coolest that Star Fox has ever been. If you've only played it on Wii U, I urge you to try it a different way. if you can, and see what you think about it then. The game's cool, it's action-packed, it's bombastic, and it's a shame it came out on a console that didn't really give it a chance to really succeed. I think if they just tweaked some things and re-released it for Switch, the game could do a lot better. But unfortunately, it's Star Fox 64, and they're about to release Star Fox 64 again. But no man, for me, this goes right up there to S tier. The only reason for me it's not going above Star Fox 64 is because I don't think Star Fox Zero is as super replayable as Star Fox 64. While I do enjoy the gyro missions, they are much slower paced, and it kind of affects the game's replayability to instantly want to go back through it. Whereas Star Fox 64 doesn't really have that problem. Star Fox 64 is just gas the entire way. Alright, and this last game is Star Fox Guard. As of the recording of this video, I literally played this game for the first time an hour ago, so my thoughts are pretty fresh. So when I hear people talk about this game, they kind of say it's trash, it's not a Star Fox game. I mean, they're right about one thing, it's not really a Star Fox game. But after playing it, it's not a bad game. It's not really for me, but it's got a fun gimmick. You have two screens, and on your TV screen you can see a bunch of camera feeds, and on your other screen you can see where all your cameras are positioned. It's a tower defense game where you're defending a tower against a bunch of robots, and every camera has a mounted machine gun, and you take out the robots. And that's really about it. There's not a lot to it. There's different kinds of robots. And like I said, I don't have a Wii U. I had to use two different screens in a booth, and doing it that way, the game is kind of a workout. It does kind of have like a frantic pace to it. Like, these robots don't look very fast, but they can quickly overwhelm you. But I think it's alright. But we're doing a Star Fox tier list, and the only thing this has in common with Star Fox is that it's in the world of Star Fox, and they're Star Fox characters. But it did have the voice actor who was the narrator for Star Fox 64, so that was pretty cool to hear.
Once the evil scientist Andros invaded the Lilat system, the Age of Peace came to an end.
Sorry, Star Fox Guard, you can't get by on just appearances alone. So you're going in D tier. And there you have it, that's my Star Fox tier list. If you're watching this video by the time the new Star Fox game comes out for Switch 2, I'll try to have a video out by then, maybe a review of the game. It's more like me going back and seeing where this game goes on this tier list, so that way you know where I personally rank it. But if you guys want to help me battle the algorithm, go ahead and comment your favorite Star Fox game and what's your favorite thing about it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.